Okay, really fast to finish off some stuff in capital campaigns. Capital campaigns most often fail because of the following reasons. There's no vision. Vision is one of your most important things. Vision means you got to sell in the campaign why it is that God wants this done. When that is clearly delineated, you will succeed. Because the pastor's not 100% in. You can't hide it. It shows. And it hurts. Where there's internal conflict. Churches having a fuss fight over something, capital campaigns will not fix it, they will hurt it. You've got to deal with that internal conflict before you get in it. I've had one church after another that I've gone into, and they have massive debt and a real mess. And oftentimes when I'm saying, how in the world did this happen? You'll get into some discussion about how back 12 years ago, there was a real fight about whether the preacher should move or stay. And it was just tearing the church up, and they thought, well, it'll bring us all together if we'll build this building. And what happened is they built the building, and one half of the folks left anyway. I thought, I need to remember that when I'm doing marital counseling, that the way to heal your marriage is you need to go out and build a house together. I'm sure that'll do it. They fail because you recruited the wrong leadership. The team must be right. It is central to it being right. And if you're going to succeed in a campaign, almost as much time and energy should be spent before you ever have the first meeting as afterwards. Because if the people you line up to lead are wrong, whatever they lead in is going to fail. You've got to have it absolutely right. Again, it's not unlike a sports team, When you put that team on the court and you know how you built it and who they are, a good coach can look at them and say, we're going to have a great season. So I got everybody like I need in every position. But when you got some holes, once you start the game, it's too late. Your goal is wrongly set. Yes, Kent.
Can you unpack a little bit the recruiting? Are there some base characteristics that you put in front of us?
You're doing a giving campaign, so you need givers. First and foremost. Too often we will hear, we need to have Mary. Why is Mary good here? Oh, Mary just does anything we ask her. She's a great worker. She's always up here. Sweetest lady in the world. Wonderful. Tell me about Mary. What does she do? Oh, she was a school teacher, just stays at home now. She can't give, so you don't want to have her on a give. She's a great person. You don't want to have her. That's job one. And then you really need to look at those 3 Ds that I talked about, Kent, the doer, donor, door opener. These are people that are going to need to call other people and say, hey, we need you to do in the campaign and to be a part of this. Are they the kind of people you want to say yes to? Etc. That's sort of how you look. But it's so important that whenever we do it in person. We do not tell you how to do it. We give you the profile. We talk it over on the phone. We determine together this is who we want to ask, but we fly in and by pastor side by side recruit every single one of them so that if it's wrong at all, we can adjust it while we're on the scene, right there doing it. That's a vital, vital, vital part. Your goal is wrongly set. Tragedy here. A lot of churches have said to me, we just had a terrible campaign back 5 years ago, and it's been very hard for our people to decide to do this again. But you really need it. By all means, you got to have one. Yeah, but we know. But they're still smarting from the one they did that was so bad. And it was like, well, what happened? Well, we got into it, but we just didn't do well. Our budget's $500,000, and we raised about $1.2 million, and we were really, really disappointed because we thought we could raise $2 million. They raised 2.5 times their budget. And that was really good. But somebody had told them it wasn't, and they believed them. And for somehow they had set a goal of $2 million to do 5 times budget, and they didn't, and they thought, or 4 times budget, and they thought that was what success looked like, and how sad it was. Or the budget was way too low. You know, we did the best we could. We had a campaign and we raised, 1 times our budget, and that was great. And now we're in this situation now. You think we might be able to do that again? So setting that goal can have everything to do with attitude and how you feel. And it's not hard to depress a congregation or to sell them a bill of goods that something well was done when it wasn't, and get you in a mess in the future. There's a lack of trust because of past behavior. Very hard to overcome. I'm reluctant to give to this campaign. Why? Well, we had a campaign for a youth center about 8 years ago. You don't see a youth center out here, do you? Yep. After we had that campaign, they decided to do something else with that money. And so, now they're talking about this. What assurances did I have that, they won't do that again? It can be a new pastor. Doesn't matter. I'm sure the pastor was in it, but so were some of these same leaders that are around here now. You really have got to do some hard work to get trust for people to step up when trust has been broken before. And in a lot of churches it has. And they'll say, well, yeah, but here's why. This is what was going on. Well, yeah, we were going to do all that, but we didn't quite raise enough money for the youth center. And somebody said, well, why don't we just get rid of this debt we haven't done? And we could catch up our apportionments with some of this stuff and get us in a lot better shape. Kind of sounded good in the meeting, but the guy that wrote the big check and put down wanted to see a youth center, and he can't figure out why it's not there. And you didn't build it, and he'd like to have his money back, but you spent it someplace else that you got in a hurry. Too many times they just get in a hurry. When you get in a hurry, you have to cut corners. When you cut corners, you don't have all the knowledge that you need to succeed, and you'll way underperform. Those are the biggest reasons that churches will fail. You asked a question about, somebody did, you did, who did? You did, about is there a percentage that you look for? There's certain matrices you can use to evaluate. Who asked me that question? Oh, okay. You hear a lot of these things about you can do so much times budget. I guess to some small extent it's helpful, but it's not that helpful, and I think it's harmful if you get too hung up on it. I told you we've done 2 times budget as much as 8 times budget. A church that says, oh, well, I hear you can do 2 times, that's great, and they're the one that could have done 8. What a shame. So you should never accept a goal or an amount you can raise without a thorough study showing what can be done in your church. How many of you believe your church is pretty much like the other churches in here? Oh, you think maybe yours is unique? You'd be surprised at how many folks will call me and they'll tell me, our church is really unique. Okay? But don't you think we can do 2 times budget? Because that's what they did down the street. They say they're unique, and then they want a matrix based off of somebody else who's right down the street. So who are they? Well, it's an Episcopalian church. It's really, okay, they're not even Methodist. So, no. But I want to give you some idea. Okay, I'll give you some idea. National studies showed across the board, if you're doing a debt campaign, you should raise about 1.6 times budget. If you're doing a remodeling campaign, you can do about 2 times budget. If you are doing an education facility, you can do 2.2. If you're doing a Great Hall kind of family life center, 2.5. If you are looking to do a sanctuary, a new sanctuary on a bare piece of ground, 2.8. National average. The highest motivations for that sanctuary.
The remodeling is once again what?
Remodeling was 2, I think, right? Yeah. So, okay, put that in your pipe and smoke it. But hear me. Don't go in and say, look, This is sort of what we can do because it's the national average. You ought to spend a lot of time convincing me you ain't the South. Right? All right, this national average included the South. It included the West. It included Alaska. So, you know, who you are in Pennsylvania, Delaware, wherever you happen to be, is unique, and you need to study it and look at it. In Utah, they give 6.5% of their money away. In New Hampshire, they give 1.7%. Different places. You're different. That's why I say people want you to quote when you come in. Well, we might hire your company. How much can you raise? I don't know. But we'll study it and we'll tell you. So that's what you want to do. Okay. Good enough to go from there? Yes, sir.
Just two things. I heard that you need at least one 10% gift.
Uh-huh.
Do you have formulas like that or not?
You know, a rule of thumb is that you'll raise 10 times your largest gift. And it's not a bad rule. You know, somebody says to me, can we raise $1 million here? My first question would be, have you got somebody to give you $100,000? If you do, okay, you have 2 people to give you 50 each.
Right.
You have 10 people that can do about 40%. It's some of the things you look at because that's how it comes in.
So basically your lead gets come in at 80% and you're trying to raise the 20?
Yep. You guessed it, brother.
Just quickly, would another piece that relates to the internal conflict reason be that just before you start the capital campaign, there wasn't a healthy unanimity behind the building project?
Yes.
Or whatever like.
Absolutely.
If the vote's not 95-5.
Yeah, I mean, we've gone in and said, you know, we're going to do this because we had a 60-40 vote.
Yeah.
Man, I wouldn't do it on 60-40.
Right.
I would not. I think you've got to have at minimum 80%. You know, I would be real shaky if it were 75. I'd want to know a whole lot more about it. You know, did they get to 75 because they rolled grandmas in from the nursing home and whatever else that kind of skewed it a little? But yeah, you got to have a huge majority to move forward. Absolutely. Or they'll work against you. They'll work to prove their case. No feasibility study. It's another big reason they fail. They decided to just avoid the study. That is an absolute mistake every time. Don't do it. Study it in advance and insist that whenever you do a study, you have the right to then back out of the campaign once it's over.
That study in that 12 to 18
Yes.
period
Mm-hmm.
beforehand? Okay.
Usually done somewhere in the 5th and 6th month before, something like that you want to do it. And there should always be an agreement when it's being done. If this doesn't look right to us, we can quit on the spot, contract canceled. Out of here. Because you really don't have enough information till you have the study.
What would that rate be for Verizon to do the feasibility study?
The feasibility study would be 20% of whatever your contract happened to be. Your contract be based on the size of your church and where it's located. All right, now I'm going to skip all of these things except to say quickly, the pathway to success, you see what the high percentages are and what the low percentages are. The key that I want here, number one, the most important factor in your success is going to be the relationship between the pastor and the consultant. You're going to work with this person hand in glove more than any staff person you have over that next 4 to 5 months, and you got to like them. I mean, you got to like them. You got to like going to lunch with them. You want to look forward to when they're coming into town. You need to like them. And if you like them, then they're likely to put a strategy together that works for you, and you will want to implement it, and it works like quarterback and coach. It's just like that. But if you don't like them, it's not going to fly. And one of the serious mistakes is that churches will listen to salespeople and hire a company instead of insisting they only talk to whoever's going to live with us for the next several months. Big mistake. Don't let a salesperson come in and talk to you. Insist whoever talks to us is whoever's going to work with us. And then don't be a pastor who says, well, I'm going to talk and visit, but I'm going to not be a part of the decision. I want the lay people to make this decision. I'm going to sit it out. We hear that a lot. Big mistake. You have got to get along. And lay people who are here, if your preacher says that, said, no, you're not, preacher. You're going to stay in here, you're going to listen to these three people, and you're going to tell us who you feel comfortable with. That's got to be in our deliberation because it's that important to your success. And then on the others, I simply want to say, don't major in the minors. We will get more people say, what we really want in the campaign, we got to have really good communication materials, and we've really been working to get all that together, and the brochures and video, we got to have all that. And we want to get these general church gifts. All these people who aren't giving now, we want to get them to rise up and do all this for us. Sounds really good. Don't work. All right? And you spend a ton of energy on what brings you almost no results. Don't major in the minors. If you focus on the top, the bottom will come along. It'll happen. And communications are always nice. But you heard me say I had $46 million, 46 families can give me at least $1 million. There wasn't a one of them told me they did it because the brochure looked so good. Nobody ever said, I'm going to make this big gift because that is the greatest capital campaign name I've ever heard. And yet I've called in, coming in tomorrow night, everything ready? Yeah, except for the communications team, and we have not got the name set for the campaign, and we worked on it. We brought in a consultant from the outside, and she was bringing in from the marketing field and telling us how to do this. We've got it down from 6 to 3, and we're working on it, but we don't have our name ready. We're probably going to need another meeting, and I'm just saying, my God, just call it Capital Campaign 1, and you're going to do about as well. They're just fretting over stuff that doesn't really matter. The top matters, and the bottom will take care of itself. Okay. Don't major in the minors. All right. Anybody have a question on capital campaigns? And then I'm going to hit the planned giving stuff for you, and then I really have run out of slides. Anybody? Oh, that's pretty good. Okay. All right. At Horizons, we call planned giving easy money, because it's the easiest money you can get. Churches will spend exorbitant energy on their annual fund, getting annual pledges, getting that people to stuff the offering, lots of energy. They'll spend a lot of energy on a capital campaign, 4 or 5 very intense months. The easiest money with the less energy expended is the planned gift, and we spend almost no time on it at all. And it can bring us the biggest return. $2.7 billion in estate tax returns. Question and what was mentioned earlier about endowments decreasing giving and hurting giving. Who asked me about that earlier? Said something about it. Don't they hurt it? If you build up endowments and everything, it's going to hurt. Not true. No. It will not hurt. There's a reason why every college does both. It's because done right, they both work. The key to this is your policies, which are an absolute must. The endowment policy is critical. It governs how the money is to be taken in and managed and spent out. The policy will say things like, money's given here, the principal can never be used. So that stops the argument that we can't pay apportionments this year, let's just go get it out of the endowment. That's something we need to be responsible for every year. We're not going to let Dead Aunt Hazel pay the apportionments for this year. Okay, so those things are stated. So you can't fuss about it. By policy, it's rejected. It cannot pay for that which is normally paid for in the operating budget. It can do things that go beyond ministry where we are, support new missions. Or it can do what I think should be the first line. It can do maintenance and capital improvements that are unplanned. And we all have them. Air conditioner, boiler, blew up, broke, died. Roof gave in, leaks. Your people get excited when you tell them you need a new boiler? No? Would they like to have heat? Yes, but they don't get excited about replacing the boiler, do they? No. So that's what your endowment monies, the interest off of, goes for. And you save the sexy stuff, a new nursery, a children's wing, etc., and we're going to have a campaign to raise money for that. But the endowment took care of the building needs, etc. The endowment policy stops that fuss. I was the speaker at the Great Rivers Conference, which is Southern Illinois, 2 years ago. I finished talking there. And when I did, there was a young woman waiting for me at the bottom of the stairs, and she motioned to me, and I went over to her, and she told me she was a new pastor right out of seminary going to her first church, and said, "Congratulations." And she said, "Well, the pastor that's leaving has been telling me this week about a problem." And I said, "What's the problem?" "Well, a lady died and left them $2.5 million. Does that sound like a problem to you? Didn't sound like it to me right off. And then she said, and he told me the church is divided in about 5 different groups on how that money needs to be spent. And it's really getting nasty. And she's walking into it. Now, guess how many different groups will want to get the new preacher on their side right off? 5 of them. Because, she's like the ace of spades, isn't it? This is a trump card. We got the preacher wants this. That makes your side a lot stronger. And that puts her in a terrible spot. And I said, "Is there no endowment policy?" And she says, "I don't think so." So it's up for grabs. The $2.5 million is up for grabs, and they're fighting over it. Now, if there had been a policy, it would have been celebrated that this money is there and it's going to help us, and according to the policy, in the following ways: locked and sealed and done. And the whole church would have been united around how great that is, versus now they have worked their way into a 5-way division. Get a policy. Where can you get an endowment policy for your church? The Mid-Atlantic Foundation can get you one and email it to you before the day's out. That's where you can get it. And you can have it approved and put in place like that. I would encourage you to have that in place before someone dies and leaves you a surprise gift.
What's the difference between a memorial committee and an endowment committee?
Well, the memorial committee takes in gifts and spends those gifts for various things in the church. Oftentimes, as they see fit, sometimes there's some guidance. They're basically the managers of a savings account. An endowment committee is managing the marketing of and distribution of the interest off of principal that's placed in. That's the basic difference in a savings account and an endowment. Endowment, you don't spend the principal. Savings accounts, you can. And you need a gift acceptance policy. Why would we ever want to turn down a gift? Well, all gifts would be good. I don't care how small, we're appreciative, right? Let us just say here. Let's see, your name was what? Jim? That's right, Jim. You're the pastor at? Sanctuary UMC. Jim, my family has had a great heart for Sanctuary UMC for years. You know, my great-great-grandmother was there, and family afterwards, and the weddings and funerals and all that. Our love for you is really deep, and we have decided that we want to give to Sanctuary 10 acres of ground. Nothing's on it. It's in downtown Philly. And we hope you'll accept it and use it wisely. Would you like to have 10 acres in the middle of downtown? It's yours.
We're not in the real estate business.
You're not, well, I understand you don't want to manage real estate, but what would you do with it? You want to sell it? You want to put a for sale sign on it? Are you in the cash business? You like cash?
I like that.
So, doesn't it sound, yeah, we don't want property in downtown Philly, but we can sure put a for sale sign in, right? That's what I'd be saying. It sounds pretty good. Probably downtown Philly, 10 acres. That might bring some real cash. There you go. So you own it because he gave it to you and you accepted ownership. And the guy comes along right after and he wants to buy it. He's been wanting to put big condominiums down there for years. You got 10 acres and they're going to do it. It's going to be a $1 billion project, and he's going to give you several $1 million for that 10 acres to Sanctuary Church. That starts looking good. And he says to you, Jim, we got a deal, buddy. Soon as they get that environmental assessment in that we know it's good ground, we're good to go. And what happened? The environmental assessment is done, and what's discovered, my great-great-great-granddaddy had an old gas station there. And it's leaked 3 tanks. And my immediate past granddaddy, well, before we tore it down, had a dry cleaners.
And it was a Navy shipyard.
I mean, it's a mess. Anyway, the EPA's heard about this, and they have sent some folks up from Washington, and they've looked at it, and they've declared this a Superfund site, and the owner by law is responsible for all the cleanup. And who's the owner? Sanctuary UMC. Now, that turned out to be a bad deal. A bad deal. It would have been solved if you'd had a gift acceptance policy. You can get one, by the way, from Mid-Atlantic Foundation. They'll get you a template, have it in place that simply says any gift of land needs to be accompanied by an environmental assessment. They don't cost very much. And anybody who really wants to make a major property gift to you would, take on the cost of getting that done. Then that's like a title insurance policy, what it is really. When you get that, somebody's giving you, you're buying a house, et cetera, you make sure the title has been checked out that it's good. It's sort of what that is. The ground is good. Then if they find something bad on it, it's not your responsibility. It is the responsibility of the professional who certified it. But you're cleared. You're cleared. Nobody has to make some hard decision. Preacher doesn't make somebody mad when he says, we can't take the land right off. Here's our policy, and it says such and such. Gift acceptance policy. State how you will receive gifts. Very important. Now, lots of tools when it comes to planned giving. And this is where I think we get sidetracked, people, and why we don't do this when it's so easy. There's gift annuities, life estates, charitable lead trust, remainder trust. Any preachers in here tell me exactly how all these work? Oh, does it sound a little complicated? Just a little bit out of your comfort zone? So if I'm saying, preacher, we need to have a class on gift annuities, you good? You can either do that one, preacher, or teach us about the Gospel of Luke. Which one would you prefer? Where do you think the preacher's going? Gospel of Luke, right? We're a little more comfortable there. So what happens is when this stuff is brought up or we hear about it, we back burner it. We get it out of the way. This is not where I'm comfortable. I don't want to go there. All right, and I understand that. But you don't have to. And that's what we've got to get over. You don't have to know the intricacies of all this any more than you have to know how to lead the music in your church. I don't read music. I don't. I have not a clue where to go in a music library and to select music that is appropriate for the choir in the church I attend to sing. I don't have a clue. Now, if it says that, Elvis did it, then I'm thinking it's probably pretty good. But beyond that, I'm clueless. But we had excellent music in my church when I was a pastor. You know why? We had excellent music directors whom I hired to do it. And I would say to him or her, hey, I'm not a good musician, but I'm a good pastor. And as a good pastor, I know that I need 2 special numbers on the Sunday before Christmas. I want you to get 2 special numbers the Sunday before Christmas. We obviously need to have our normal anthem. I want you to add a special music piece before Christmas. At Easter, we're going to have a Stop the World service on Easter. I want us to have brass. I want us to have horns. I want all this kind of stuff and some drums and whatever that's going to take to have. in our sanctuary along with the choir. My sermon's I'm gonna cut 5 minutes on the sermon and do 15 because I want you to add another musical piece in there. That's what I want you to do. Will you do that? And they say, yes, sir. I say, good. So they go and they know how to find the music, how to do it, where you get the musicians, how you line it up, make it happen. Come Christmas, come Easter, we have great music. It works. I preach a great sermon. They sing great music. I go to the back. They tell me, wow, preacher, it was fantastic today. Thank you so much. I haven't got a clue how she pulled it off. But I don't need to. I just know it worked. And it benefited my church. Now, most of you are that smart. You know what you need in your church. You just don't know how to do it all. This is the same. And what you do here, I know as a preacher, we need planned giving taught at a level my people can understand it, that they may choose to participate in it on behalf of the church I'm responsible for. That's about as much as I know. So I'm calling the foundation saying, I want you to take it from here. And their job is to say back to you, yes, sir. Yes, ma'am. They are your staff. No different from your music director. You hear that? You do it. They teach it. People want to do it. Oh, goody. Let me refer you to my staff person who handles that. They take it. Money comes. You cash it. You use it.
We just did it last 2 Sundays ago. It was great. Had a time of lunch, had Mid-Atlantic come in. It was great.
Okay. When are you going to do it again?
6 months from now.
There you go. Don't be one of these. And I say, why haven't you ever taught your people? We did. We had a deal, 3 years ago? Yeah, they came in. They did a Sunday night for us. You've been in since? No. Doesn't work. Your best planned gift to the easiest and the most used planned gift is what? The will. Now we're not complicated. Now we're just saying one sentence. I wish to leave blank to Sanctuary UMC. That's it. Period. That's it. That is it. 10%, 20%, 1%, 10,000, whatever you put in the blank, that's what goes. I die, you get it. That's simple. It's that easy. Give some thought to what would happen if everyone you buried last year had a tithe statement in their will. The 10% of my estate, whatever it is, and the people you buried, there was one sentence in a will that said that. What would that have brought? Anybody here have 10 funerals? Nobody had 10? You had 10? Had 12. You have killed off more than anyone in this room. You know, it would be very common to say the average estate in her church was around $500,000. That'd be a very average estate. Value of your business, value of your home, value of your investments. $500,000 you can get to pretty quick when you add all that up. $500,000. One person dies, that's $50,000. And you know how much work you had to do additional to get that? None. You're going to do the funeral anyway. You're going to counsel a family anyway. You're going to do all the things the pastor's going to do anyway, except a lawyer's going to call you about 2 weeks later saying, preacher, we have a check here for $50,000. Where do you want me to send it? You give them the address. That's the extra work you did. Because at some point you got people moved to add one sentence to a will. Now that doesn't happen because you stand up on Sunday and say, everybody go home and do it. But you start it somewhere and you begin to get it going. And after a few years, they have done it. If only half of the people in her church had done it, say she didn't get 12, she got 6. It's $300,000, of which every year you're getting a check for 30 back for, and you get that forever. And all you did is what you do anyway. That's why it's easy money, and that's why you really need to get the foundation in there and get this started. And then you can do this part. Hey, let's all do this. I've done it. As your pastor, I've done it in my will. I hope all of you will kind of look at that. Let's all do that. And you remind them in a newsletter a couple months later. You start putting it on there. bottom of stationery, and after a few years it gets done. And you just sit back and do whatever it is you do anyway as a pastor. You just get the phone call with money that comes in. Marketing's your key. I think you should do it 4 times a year, not 2. You need to get a letter out, a speaker out, and a brochure out, all of which may be gotten for you by the Mid-Atlantic Foundation. What they can't do is the top part. They can't decide we're doing it 4 times a year. You decide that, you put it on the calendar. You call your staff person and say, we need a letter to go out by this date, a speaker to come on this date, and a brochure when they're here about what you're talking about, and they'll provide it. Now, is that a deal or what? How much extra work did you do? You called them and said, come on these dates. That's it. You hung up and you went about doing your business. And they served you. Okay. Question about planned giving. Anybody? Capital campaigns. How many of you wish you'd left at 5? Hey, yes, sir. One question.
Challenges around capital campaigns, when the present worshiping congregation had no relationship with the original building.
Yeah.
It was built. It's been 20 years later, you're still carrying the debt, but it's like completely new people, no relationship.
Yeah.
Maybe
That's okay.
more families remember what
Yeah.
happened then. How do you go about doing a debt reduction to something that the new people were not
Okay.
related?
All right, real quick. What's your budget?
380,
What's your debt?
600.
Okay, about two times, a little less than 2 times. Which I wouldn't say something you have to get rid of. You've managed it. But you could certainly do it in one campaign and you could wipe it out. Debt campaigns are never run on yesterday's debt. They're always run on tomorrow's vision. What will removing that from your budget allow you to do in ministry going forward if they'll step up? That's what they'll get excited about and do. Not paying off a building they didn't decide to do in the first place. It'll be on what paying it. They know they're paying the note now. I mean, they're fulfilling an obligation. If we rally around in this one event over the next few months and wipe this out, here's what it'll mean for us in ministry going forward. That's how you run it. Okay. You guys have been fabulous. You've been great. I can't believe you stayed around for more, but I really appreciate it, and I appreciate you. And Andy, thanks for the invite. Thanks for the chance to be here. I hope y'all have a great time out on the town tonight. Do well. I won't be with you in the morning, but I understand you've got about 3 hours of plotting and planning and whatever else. Here's my promise I do want to give to you. And I told several of you who wanted to talk in between that I was, I'm a little busy here. Don't have as much time as I'd like for one-on-one kind of stuff. I will never charge any of you who want to call me and ask a question. I'll never be upset if you send an email and want to inquire, I'm thinking of this or thinking of that, or can you help me with this or help me with that. Meter's never running for any of you. It's on the house, and I would welcome you to do it. We're here to serve you. Go win people for Jesus. Thanks.